Again, there were more strengths also. This is a second series of strengths that they were saying, that we used this in the right way, that provided the information. You can read that. But we want to look at, obviously, the recommendations. We need to continue to use that data to make good decisions, to use that data that we've collected to drive instruction. We need to use that data not simply to look at the scores, but then to reflect back on how we can change the instruction that we're doing. I think that's an important part with this. We need to give students feedback. We've heard a lot about that idea that we need to do more with collaboration, written comments, teacher-student conferencing to enable students to revise their work. We need to reintroduce secondary literacy and math coaches that have been proven to be beneficial. We talked about that. That's a recommendation for CAP, but we understand that there's a big budgetary constraint on that. We have used teachers, their duty period, to do some of that work that the coaches used to do. So we're trying to maximize our staff to reintroduce some of those strategies. We do know that we need to look at the goals and objectives on students' IEPs and make sure that the students' IEPs are being honored. And that's what we need to focus on. We're going to talk a little bit about how we're going to do that in a second. And then we also, one of the recommendations, formal opportunity should be built into the teacher's schedule, allow the content teacher to conference with our ESL teacher. That's easier said than done with the structure, but I am fortunate that Mr. Ambers, who has an ESL background, and will be spending some time helping coordinate that with the ESL program. So it's the first time that I'm going to have an administrator more, in addition to the supervisor, in the building to have some oversight where we need it in the ESL. So that's one of these responsibilities that he'll be doing this year. So what are the actions? Specific action plans. Scantron, teacher reflection sheets. Mr. Honeyman's working on that to have that given a little bit more feedback on where we're going. We're looking at teacher schedules to be aligned for common prep. We have some of that with block scheduling. Mr. McGovern has worked very hard to try to look at how we can have teachers at least off at some part of the day to have some collaboration. The other interesting idea, and we've brought this in with our professional development, is, and I say it's a heightened use of educationally appropriate social networking to provide students with formative feedbacks. Our librarian has done a tremendous job getting students online and being able to share back and forth with wikis, nings, and blogs. We need to do more with making them aware so that we are giving them that feedback coming back. We're definitely a great new move this year is using OnCourse. OnCourse is what the elementary schools have been using. We're very fortunate at the secondary level this year to have OnCourse. We're going to review lesson plans and to ensure that IEP goals and objectives are included. Mr. Ambers is currently working on revising our webpage. High school webpage will be revamped. He'll be the point person for OnCourse training. We already did a cohort of teachers to at least get them introduced to the idea of OnCourse. We're going to start looking at using them to upload their lesson plans, and then we're going to move in that direction that the elementary schools have really been out in front of. And again, I said this before, was the idea of assigning an assistant principal to provide support as we go, as that population changes and their needs fluctuate. Instruction. And again, you can kind of see what the standards are in the red at the top. But technology, because of the support of the board and central office, the high school is very well equipped with technology. I believe we're trying to look at between permanent and the portable smart boards. We have almost every instructional room covered with a smart board. So we have technology, it's a strength, but as it's a strength, we also have to make sure that we don't lose focus on how we're using it. We're very concerned with taking it to the next level, not just the way I'm using it as a display tool. Are they using it to really help student achievement? English and science teachers have had cross-curricular discussions. And I'll be the first to say that's the step in the right direction, but we need to keep moving. The block, as everybody knows about, the 71-minute block English for the sophomores and math. It allows us to use instructional time. It's a strength, but again, we need to look at what's going on in there. So we're going to kind of go back and forth. Even though they're seeing it as a strength, we want to make sure that we're using that time wisely. And again, we're looking at the ESL teacher consults with students to tailor her instruction to their needs. We want to make sure that we continue to do that. She really gives up a lot of her time to make sure that works. So we want to really somehow formalize that time so we can keep that in there. Recommendations. We need to look at our lesson plans. That's something that we knew that right at the end of the year. We need to look at standardizing our lesson plans to make sure if we have initiatives like classroom instruction that works, we know that improves instruction and student achievement, but we need to make sure that we get that into the lesson plans. We need to develop that. We're going to have that conversation beginning this year, and we hope to have some changes made in the lesson plans that we asked teachers to do, hopefully by the end of the year, and you'll see a little bit more of that. Again, we're going to keep looking at technology. We want to use it as an interactive tool. We've been very fortunate to offer trainings here at the high school, professional development trainings on SmartBoard. We now have teachers that could be professional trainers. We started small, and we really have it's evolved into really a living document or a living group of people that are at different stages, and they're going out, and we're starting to see it throughout the building. Again, we keep looking at the needs for our ELL or ESL teachers. We want to look at the models that we want to have training. We want to keep looking at formalizing that structure so it's just not the one person providing that we're using that as a formal strategies. Future lesson plans will reflect CITW, so we want to make sure if we're doing these ideas about classroom instruction and works that we're seeing that back in the lesson plan. That's one of the actions that we absolutely need to start having that conversation with. We want to continue to provide the professional development training opportunities and then move that forward. And then we also want to make sure that there's consequences, administrative consequences for teachers not utilizing best practice. We want to make sure that we're holding people accountable. When we start looking at evaluation, we want to make sure once we're confident that they've been trained and they understand it, we want to start making sure that they're doing it. We want to make sure that we're assessing them and we're using that to, again, improve instruction. School culture. I talked about this a few minutes ago. I truly believe this is an area where the high school, with our school leadership team, our teachers, our staff feels that this is an area of one of those top 1 or 2 that we want to look at. We want to look at improving school culture, climate, morale, and we believe that once we start to address those issues, it's going to improve the school in general. Strengths, classrooms are well managed, classrooms were under control, student government is addressing many student issues. Ladies in front of me are a great example of that. They're a testament to what our students are capable of doing. We have great diversity in our clubs. We have a performing arts program, marching band, our chorus, our athletics. I could have put that up there. We have a lot of strong starting points, but we do need to work on some things. The leadership should promote staff accountability, to monitor halls to ensure student punctuality. We've taken a hard look this summer, now that we're having our administrators by grades. Every administrator, assistant principal has been given an area of responsibility in the building, that they're going to have that area that they're responsible for. It will not be so much just having an assistant principal of discipline. An assistant principal grade 9, 10, 11, 12 will do discipline, but they'll also be responsible for instruction. They'll also be responsible for maintaining those areas. There's going to be more administrative oversight in the building. We know we need intervention and referrals committee, intervention and referral services. This committee addresses needs of students when we see that they're academically struggling, that we get a whole host of reasons. If they had high grades and they start to drop, or they've just always had lower grades, what are we doing to address their needs? This may not necessarily be a student who's eligible for special services, but we need, and this came out loud and clear. This is an area that we have not done in a while, and we're going to do it. We're going to provide formal training for our team, for an IRS committee. We're going to make sure that they're trained in the most recent strategies. We have this committee up, and we need this committee to be addressing the needs of the students. It's really an area we need to present to staff, along with the new bullying and harassment, right to know, but we need to have services for students who are not being successful in a classroom we know we can. We have too many students in this school that have lower grades. The grades are low at times. We need to do something to address that. And that needs to be everybody, though. So as a recommendation, we need to start having the guidance counselors work on that, the assistant principals work on that, and this IRS committee. So we have a lot of work. I'll be the first to say this is an area that we need to commit time and energy. And we're working on right now. We're looking at bringing trainers in. We have a couple of options, and we're going to do that no later than the late fall to have that up and running. Leadership, we've begun to look at suspension data. We need to look at that. We need to figure out and analyze the data and try to redistribute administrative the load there to figure out what's going on. We've been having those conversations. That's one of the reasons why we believe very strongly in the 4 assistant principals by grade level. That literally takes 400 students off their caseload. It distributes the students across all 4 grade levels. My expectation and our expectation is that we're going to be able to spend more quality time with students, not that assembly line of just pumping it out. So I think that's very important. We also, underneath leadership, we're considering adding the 9th grade, well we are, I will tell you right now, we're going to add a 9th grade transition program. Last year, student government spent some time going down to the middle school. We saw that, we got great feedback on that. We want to formalize eventually into a character ed program that we can work with that idea of freshmen with student government transitioning into the high school. And I believe later we're going to look at an idea of an ambassador program also for students who are new into the school to help them transition. And then obviously one of the things that we looked at is the caseload of our guidance counselors. We're concerned about caseload. I think in this climate right now, we have what we feel is a strong number of guidance counselors with numbers, but we want to make sure that the guidance counselors are seeing students and addressing their needs. And we're going to try to, I think that's where INRS will come in to help balance out the needs academically. We went to this house model where every teacher either teaches in a 9-11 combination or a 10-12 to make a big school smaller. We're still keeping that concept along with the guidance counselors because we want to make sure that 9th grade students are being seen just as much as 11th and 12th grade seniors as they transition out. We need to spend as much time with the students as possible. We know that we have limited resources, but we need to maximize that time. We need to remember that the students are that first priority. We need to get them as soon as possible, not let them slip by too far. So we're gonna monitor the load. I'll be the first to say, and Mike McGovern, when we get to this for questions, we can look at different areas. If you're a guidance counselor and you're in 9-11, that's different than 10-12 because you're not doing that college recommendation piece. That's a different amount of work. When you're a 9-11 guidance counselor, you're looking at transition and the issues with the students coming in. When you're a 10-12, that means that you have 10th graders and 12th graders with the load for college. Your load is distributed differently, but we feel that that's consistent with what we want to try to deliver here. I kind of talked a little bit in there with our action plans, but I think it's important. We're restructuring our supervisory duties. For example, an assistant principal will be in detention every day this year. We're going to tighten those things up. We're going to look at the supervisory responsibilities throughout the building. We're going to look at lunch duty, what goes on. We're going to look at what goes on in the halls. We're going to look at all those areas. We want to make sure that they know we're there. We're fortunate that we are fully staffed to do that. Formal training definitely needs to be a priority of INRS. We're going to continually analyze and discuss the suspension data in our house meetings. We'll have meetings with 9-11. So an assistant principal 9-11 is going to go in there. What are we seeing with freshmen? Are we seeing something different with freshmen versus 11th graders? And we want to address that before the problem gets out of control. We want to monitor that if we see something new coming up with those trends. Again, we want to expand students' government's role. And that goes across the board. And I know the students are going to talk about the Renaissance Lounge. We have a tremendous group of students in this building. We need to empower them because they can do great things. Again, here's the other idea, and I knew I had it in here somewhere, this ambassador program. At the end of the year,